So, hello, fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And the NFL had, or still has, I guess, a race norming problem, meaning that it has recently been revealed that they were going to stop a process called race norming. And what I've read in different articles was that race norming assumed that black athletes started out with a lower cognitive function than white athletes. And with that in mind, having read that statement, that idea, if you start out lower and you get, hit a lot and your brain function decreases, based on what I've said, um, that decrease won't seem as high if you started out lower. And of course, just the statement that there's an assumption that black athletes have lower cognitive function than white athletes, that sounds racist, right? Straight off the bat. And of course, if you have to pay money and you assume that they started out lower, so wherever they end up, it's from a lower place, so you don't have to give them as much money. Um, this is the idea that's in all these different articles. And I just took it as that, and I was like, wow, that is messed up. And I shared it with other people that I knew. And one of my friends was like, I can't believe that this is going on in this day and age. Now, when he said that, he also sent me a voice note. And I was already like, well, I'm going to find proof to show you that it's been going on. But then he was kind of like clarified in his voice note that I don't mean that I don't believe it exists, it's just I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. But I was already looking, and not to show him, eventually I just responded, yeah, that's true, I can't believe it either, kind of. But when I went looking, I found an article from 1991, which is when apparently this race norming started, according to the initial articles that I read. But this article was different because it was saying that race norming was meant to sort of make up for the fact that yes, black athletes, well, not athletes, the situation or the scenario that they were giving was that black test takers for an employment exam, black and Latino test takers, did not score as high as white test takers. But there was indications that the tests were not reliable because some black test takers performed better at their jobs than their scores indicated. And further, there was an implication that the test itself was skewed to have white test takers perform better. And the idea was that the scores of black and Latino test takers were adjusted without telling potential employers that any adjustment had been made. Now, depending on the side that you're on, if you're on a conservative side or a Republican side, you might just simply say, that's not fair. How can you adjust? How can you curve? Because that seems familiar and fair. Lots of people seem to agree with that. How can you curve the scores of these minorities? That's not fair. You're giving them an unfair advantage. But the idea is that, hey, what we're seeing is that there's something wrong with these tests. So while we're waiting to have the tests fixed, let's recognize that there's a problem with the tests and make an adjustment. Well, that's 1991. We're in 2021. I've looked for articles that might indicate whether or not these tests have been adjusted. And from what I'm seeing, they haven't been. Many of us know what the bell curve is. It's a book that came out that was supposed to reveal that minorities, they just couldn't really cut it. I mean, maybe I'm misrepresenting what the actual words in the book were, but that's what the book has been used to promulgate. Is that the right word? To pass out, to give out, to spread. And I've even heard people like, is it Sam Harris? I mean, Sam Harris is, a professional debater or speaker, and he speaks slowly and eloquently. He has the right vocabulary, so he sounds very intelligent. But once I heard him just accept that, hey, black people, test takers, are obviously not as capable as white ones, because we can see from this test scores that, the white people are doing better. I was done. I was done with him because everybody came from Africa. Okay? Humanity came from Africa. Some people left Africa. You're not going to tell me, and this is something that I have, I've spoken about in my earlier podcast then. You're not going to tell me that all these smart people left Africa. You're not going to tell me that. Or you're not going to tell me that only the dumb people became slaves? Because no, I don't think that's what people are saying. I think people are just basically saying that black people are not as smart as everybody else. And in order for that to be the case, you'd have to make this assumption that I don't think it's smart that all the smart people left Africa. Right? They self-selected themselves, whether it was from the Horn of Africa to West Africa or East Africa. They came together at some point. They had a summit, picked out who the most intelligent people were, and those people, their ancestors, left Africa and left all the dumb people in Africa. So the people who left became Europeans, they became Asians, they became people from, Australia, from the Americas, and the smart people went to Europe and stayed in Europe. The other smart people went to Asia and stayed in Asia. Is that how it happened? That's, I don't want to use the R word, but that doesn't add up, is what I want to say. In an old derogatory way, I want to say that does not add up. So when Sam Harris is using the results of these scores, and it doesn't recognize that, black people in America are the most genetically diverse group of people in America. How does the most genetically diverse group of people in America end up being the dumbest? That doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't even make any sense to group all of the people who stayed in Africa together as a group and just recognize the morphological differences of some people who became European and some people who became Asian, and say, oh, because they look different, they're intrinsically different in terms of intelligence, and now we've been able, that path leads to the R word. It doesn't make a lick of sense. Anyway, um, back to race norming. Um, the whole point of what I learned was that race norming was actually meant to help minorities. It is not as it is being portrayed, the lazy portrayal of it, which is to say that it was this racist idea, process, system, whatever, to keep black people down. It was not about assuming that black people started with a lower cognitive function. It was about assuming that something is wrong with the tests and the test scores are wrong. So we have to make adjustments for the test scores. That's why in some places, in some articles, I've seen, hey, this race, what is it again? Race conforming or whatever, I'm going to remember it in a second. Race norming was not meant to hurt minorities, it was meant to help. Of course, that all of this stuff got lost in the assumptions. It's just, I feel bad that I swallowed it and I didn't go looking for myself. I mean, initially I was like, what's going on here? This is just weird. This doesn't make any sense. How is this possible? And when my friend, voiced the same kind of thing, I was kind of like, okay, the two of us are not stupid. Let me go look at this stuff. Yeah. And initially when I read it, I'm like, I was reading, hey, race norming was not meant to be a discrepancy. It was not meant to take away. It was meant to help. I was like, I don't believe it. And then I read more, and then I realized, hey, it's to make all it's to normalize what we know to be true, which is not that these minorities are dumb. It's to recognize that something must be wrong with the tests, and the tests were never fixed, and they still have not been fixed. The whole idea with the SAT is that your SAT score can never be improved. It is an idea of you, which is really ridiculous, because it's again, your SATs and these IQ scores are suggesting that no, you can't get any smarter, even with practice, and which is kind of like, okay, so it means a baby was born with a certain amount of intelligence, so a baby can't get smarter, when we obviously know that that's not the case. A baby, a toddler, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, they get smarter. They understand the world better. So then what are we really measuring? If humans can get smarter, what are we measuring when we're saying that, no, this is your intelligence? It doesn't really make any sense. I've gotten into arguments with people about this, and in some instances I just gave up, because I was telling them, like, hey, they don't have a proper definition of intelligence. And what somebody did was they went to the dictionary, they pulled up the definition of intelligence, and they're like, hey, here you go. And yeah, maybe I should have tried to explain, but I was just tired. Anyway, I don't want this recording to get too long, but race norming is not what the media is portraying it to be. That's my whole point. Have a good one. Peace.